Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Morning.
Morning. So nice to hear people actually saying good morning to each other. It doesn't always happen in the companies that I know. So it's really nice.
All right, Clara, we're good to go.
We're good to go?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, brilliant. So welcome, everyone. Really delighted to be here for this workshop of mindfulness at work, which is a topic that's very close to my heart. In fact, it's so close to my heart that I wrote a book about it, Mindfulness at Work, in a week. So it's a short guide. And navigating stress in the workplace is my daily bread and butter. It's the number one issue, I would say, that I help companies deal with, as well as individuals. And so it's something that I'm familiar with myself especially from my days in investment banking. So just to give you a little bit of an introduction about myself, I'm of Greek and German origin, but I've lived in London for the entirety of my adult life, London and Oxford, and I did my PhD in literature and then went into investment banking 25 years ago, actually. And that was the time when I really got to know what stress really means from a sort of, from being in a front office, higher powered job, which was really incredibly stressful. So that's kind of my personal experience. And ever since when I trained as an executive coach, this was a theme that ran throughout my time as an as a executive coach. And so over the years, I specialized in different modalities and got different qualifications within coaching. And I specialized in neuroscience and the application of neuroscience to the leadership world, to the workplace, mindfulness and emotional intelligence. And went back to university to do a neuroscience degree with an emphasis on mindfulness, which I've now used as a way to integrate my approach using both traditional mindfulness approaches as well as the sort of modern approaches to psychology, emotional intelligence, and the insights from neuroscience to deliver an integrated approach and help companies create a culture of what I call sustainable well-being. So that's a little bit about me and where I'm sort of coming from. But I just wanted to get an idea of where you are all at. And because a lot of my clients experience this sort of situation. And I was just wondering if anyone here can relate to that or could ever relate to that. Do you have any? And please do give me a yes in the chat if this is something that you are familiar with, that you're going through at the moment, or that you have ever experienced in your working life. Just use the chat. I think that's a good way to kind of communicate with each other because of the numbers. So if you want to give me a yes in the chat. You can also give me a no if this is not familiar with you. Let me see. Can't see any. Anyone want to let me know? Definitely familiar. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes. Excellent. Yes, I mean this is very familiar to a lot of people. If it isn't, I guess you don't need this workshop. But if it is familiar, and I'm seeing more yeses coming in with emphasis. So if this is familiar to you, then you are in the right place. So yeah, let's get started. So what I was planning to do here with you today is, hang on, let me just share the outline that I've planned for today, which is to, first of all, give you an idea of what mindfulness really is. I don't know if anyone has experienced it before, but, just really understand what is mindfulness and what is not mindfulness. And more importantly, even than that, is to really have an experience of mindfulness. So I want to guide you in some practices so that you can experience it for yourself and you really know what it feels like, what it is like to practice it. Then we'll talk about, why mindfulness? What is the role of mindfulness in the workplace? What is the business case for actually practicing this in the workplace? We'll look particularly at workplace stress and how the neurophysiology of stress plays out, and then how we can navigate stress with the tools of mindfulness. And one of my major ambitions for today is to give you some tools for the workplace that you can start using from today. So really easy tools that are practical, applicable, and you will have the confidence to apply them straight away. And so at the end of the session, I will allow maybe 10 minutes for questions. And hopefully, if you have questions throughout, hold on to them or put them in the chat. And then at the end, we can address as many as possible. So I hope that sounds okay to you. And without further ado, I wanted to just take a kind of a pulse check and check in with you how you're feeling with regard to stress right now in this moment. And there's no judgment attached. There's no right or wrong here. I just want to get a sense of where the group is at. So what would you say? And please give me a number in the chat if you're open to doing that. On a scale of 1 to 10, how stressed would you say you're feeling right now? Just to get an idea. And there's, no need to feel embarrassed or funny about it. Around 8 or 9. 8, 11. Wow, that's a lot of stress. 6 to 7, 4, 8, 9, 7 to 8, 12. Wow. 6, yep. 5, 7, 8. Yeah, it's really useful. And, as I said, I just want to get an idea of where we're all at, so that we can see if anything changes throughout the workshop. 5, 5, 3. Okay, someone is quite relaxed here. 4s. Okay, great. 8. So there's a huge variety, right? There's a huge variety in stress. We've just come out of the weekend, so some people might be feeling quite relaxed still from that, and others might be already in the working mode. So let's see how that changes, if it does. And it doesn't have to. We'll just see what happens. So before I even tell you what I think mindfulness is all about, I just want to give you an idea of how it feels to practice it. So I invite you to join me in this practice, which I will guide just about 4 to 5 minutes. And this is what the kind of posture that you might want to adopt. Just sitting where you are and letting your feet be flat on the floor so that you can feel the floor under your feet rather than having them crossed. Sitting away slightly from the back of the chair if you can, and you can place your palms on your thighs and just letting your shoulders drop, softening and relaxing all the muscles in your face. You can close your eyes if you prefer, or you can keep them open. That's completely up to you. And as we start in this practice, I invite you to bring to mind your reason for being here, your motivation for being here. What is it that brings you here, and what are you hoping to learn, to hear, to take away from this session this morning? Just bringing that to mind. And I also invite you to set an intention for this practice, to just follow along as best you can with an open mind, with curiosity, just to see what this might be like. And so I then invite you to let your awareness drop right into your body. A lot of us have the sensation that we are located up in our heads, and we tend to feel a little bit disembodied. So the invitation is really to drop your awareness into the body, into this field of somatic sensations. And let it come to rest, grounding your awareness in the sensations of solidity and firmness, where your body is in contact with the chair and the feet are in contact with the floor, and just grounding your awareness there, letting it land there. And then letting your awareness spread throughout this entire field of the body and becoming aware of all the different sensations that are present in your body that we tend to ignore most of the time. Are there any areas where you feel different temperatures? Maybe you're cold in some places of your body and maybe you're warm or even hot in others. Just tuning into that sensation of temperature and becoming aware of the moisture in your mouth. Just noticing that. And also noticing any fluctuations in energy throughout your body, any sense of movement, the air from the breath passing in and out of your body, your heart beating. Maybe you can even feel the energy throbbing in your veins, the blood coursing. So just tuning into this space, this domain of experience where there are no words, no labels, and letting your awareness rest in this kind of witnessing mode, just observing what's here without wanting to change it in any way, without wanting to improve it, without thinking about it or visualizing the body, just resting in this kind of witnessing mode, mindfully present with whatever arises and whatever presents itself in this field of experience. And if you become aware of any tension, any constriction in some parts of your body, then I invite you to just breathe into those with your in-breath, tenderly, gently, attending to any areas of tension. And then breathing out, releasing that tension and surrendering your muscles to gravity on the out-breath. And so this is the way that we can settle our body in a state of relaxation, of stillness without any unnecessary fidgeting, and of vigilance, because we're not here to fall asleep and zone out, but really to tune in. And so we are settling in a state of dynamic equilibrium, settling the body in a state of relaxation, stillness, and alertness. And then moving on to settling our breath in an effortless rhythm, just letting the breath flow without intervention, without preference, and relinquishing all control over the breath. We're not trying to breathe a certain way. We're just breathing as our body needs to breathe, getting completely out of the way of our body, surrendering to the wisdom of our body to know how to breathe. So whether your breath is long or short, deep or shallow, just let the breath flow without any intervention or preference. And using each exhalation to relax more and more deeply, releasing the entirety of the breath without pushing the breath out, just letting it flow out like a glass of water that's tipped on its side. The water just pours out effortlessly. And when it's time to breathe in, your body will know what to do, just breathing in. The breath coming in like a wave washing up on shore. And if thoughts are coming up, or you're getting bored, or you're thinking of other things, just notice that without judgment. Just release on your next out-breath. Let the thoughts flow away, like letting go of a helium balloon and watching it fly into the sky. And so this is how we settle the breath in a state of natural, effortless rhythm. And then we become aware of our minds, all the different thoughts, maybe cares and concerns, hopes and fears that are present in our mind. And we give ourselves permission for this short duration of this practice to just put the thoughts aside for a moment. It's like carrying a heavy suitcase, and just give ourselves permission to just place it down next to us, ready to be picked up if needs be. And it's in the absence of chasing after thoughts about the past and the future that our awareness can come back to where it belongs, in this immediacy and stillness of the present moment. So we don't need to do anything. We don't need to banish the thoughts. We just give ourselves permission to not follow them. And so our awareness can come to rest in the immediacy of the present moment, relaxed, still, and wide awake. So this is how we can settle our body and our mind in a state of relaxation, of stillness, and of clarity. And this can be and become our baseline. We can come back to this state anytime during the day. So whenever you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes if they were closed and come back to the room. And so I'd be interested to hear how you're feeling now. You all gave me your stress scores out of 10. And so if you'd like to share, maybe share the change. And I won't be offended if there isn't a change, or it doesn't have to, it's just to take stock. I really would like to hear what happened. Are you feeling less stressed? Are you feeling more stressed? Or are you feeling the same after this practice? Please share in the chat if you like. Let me know. Same, 4. Okay, same. Less stressed? Less stressed. Feel less stressed. Sleeping, yeah, that can happen. That can totally happen. Same, less stressed. So less calm, less stressed. Same. Okay. Right. Less stressed. So a mixture. Some are feeling the same, some are feeling less stressed. Yeah. Okay. Good. Nobody seems to be feeling more stressed, so that's good. Same. Okay. Okay. So it's good to have an idea of what happens and what can happen. I mean, this was a very short practice, yeah, some people same, some people less. Okay, great. So I would like you to tell me, before I give you a definition of mindfulness, of what, and don't worry, you don't have to sit in this position. I'd just like you to say, what have you noticed about what we did? If this was a typical mindfulness practice, what is it that you noticed about what we did? What would you say mindfulness is all about, judging from this one practice? And of course, there are many different practices. Anything you'd like to share in the chat? What would you say it's all about? Drawing attention to the present. Yes, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Anything else? Focusing on our body. Yeah, that was definitely part of it. Anything else? What did you notice? Let go. Yeah, absolutely. Anything else? Searching peace. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It definitely has to do with peace. Yeah. So that kind of inner peace. Anything else? Being present, sensations that we forget are there all day, disconnecting from the day-to-day noise. Yeah, both of these things, definitely. Yeah, tuning into the sensations, stillness. Be present, notice your feelings, connection with our body. Yeah, definitely. Anything else? What did I say? What did I suggest at the beginning? Did anyone notice that? I invited you to reconnect with your motivation for being here and to kind of set an intention for the practice as well. So anything else? Controlling the breathing. Yeah, did we actually control the breathing? Did we actually control the breathing? Let me share. It's a good point. I'll come back to that. So one thing to notice about mindfulness practice, there is an intention to do it. It's not just hanging out, right? Because sometimes we might take a moment, we just hang out and just look out of the window and daydream. This is not like this. So we are setting an intention, and the intention can be anything you want it to be, of course, about, you want to find greater relaxation or greater peace, or you want to, something else that you want to get out of the practice. But it's important to, or at least intend to, just focus on your breath, for example, or just intend to tune into your body. Whatever your intention is fine, but have that kind of intention at the beginning, because then it will infuse the practice with that intention. Then it's about coming back to our direct experience. So rather than being up in our heads, in our sort of narrative network where we're just constantly commenting on what's happening to us, we're constantly thinking and ruminating and giving a sort of internal commentary, an internal monologue on our experience. It's coming back to the direct experience, the 5 physical senses, but also our mental sense of noticing that there are thoughts, for example. It's direct experience rather than being up in a sort of narrative, in a narrative, creating stories in our mind, which I think a lot of us feel very familiar with, because that's what our minds do naturally. And so here we're coming back to what's actually here and what is actually present in the present moment as it unfolds in real time, rather than not being in real time. I think that's what an experience that many of us have. We're not actually where we are, but we're somewhere ahead in the future or in the past, or we're commenting on the present moment. So here we're just coming back to the present. And we're also dropping into a different mode of being, rather than being in this doing mode where we're constantly active, we're constantly doing something, we're constantly on our to-do list, getting somewhere, trying to get somewhere, focusing on goals, etc., and trying to fix our experience. Here we're just dropping in. We're dropping into a state of being, just being here, being alive, being aware of what's going on. So it's a being state rather than a doing state. And last but not least, it's doing it in a non-judgmental way. So whatever our experience is, some of you said your stress levels are the same after the practice, and that's fine. That's where you are at. There's no judgment. There's no judgment, oh, I should be doing it better, or I'm not good at this. This is not it. If you're finding it difficult to do this, then that's all the more reason to keep doing it, right? And we do that with kindness towards ourselves. And so this definition of mindfulness that I particularly like is by Jon Kabat-Zinn, who's like the founder of the modern mindfulness movement. And he defines mindfulness as a way of paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, that's the intentional bit, in the present moment, that's the attention, and non-judgmentally, and that's the attitude with which we do it. So there's an intention, there's the attention to the present moment, and there's an attitude of non-judgmentalness, of kindness. So why should we be doing this? Well, I want to share with you this tool, this practice that we did just now, as a tool that you can apply and you can practice straight away. And so it's an ancient practice, actually. It goes back to the 8th century, but I put it in this format that becomes a 3-step process. And I call it the 3-step system reset, because it's really a way of, a bit like pressing restart on your computer or doing an update, an upgrade on your phone, where you really, you bring your system into a new state, right? You refresh your system, because sometimes, when you have too many windows open, it slows down a lot and you don't work so efficiently, or you get very stressed or agitated, or you're just too busy. So this is a way to come back to a sense of balance and inner peace. And the way to do it is really simple. The first one is tuning into your body and just being present with what arises in your body without changing it in any way. And what we're cultivating here is a state that is at once relaxed, but also alert. We know how to relax and fall asleep, and that's quite normal. That might happen because we're all sleep deprived. But what we're cultivating is being relaxed, but being alert at the same time, knowing what's going on. So we're not tuning out, we're zoning in, we're tuning in. And you can do this for just 1 minute or even less, the more familiar you get with this practice. Just think 1 minute of just tuning into the body and noticing what's there in a relaxed but alert way. Second step, tuning into the breath, observing the breath. It may be erratic, it may be long, short, deep, shallow, whatever it is, just let it flow. Don't interfere with the breath. Get out of the way. It's relinquishing control. Yeah. So it's not trying to make the breath be a certain way. And just let your body breathe and have that sense that as if you're listening to someone else's breath rather than fixing the breath in any way. So it's really a practice of surrender. And then looking at the mind, all the thoughts and desires that are going on in our mind, the feelings. And what we do there is we don't follow them. We just become aware of them, but we let the mind come back to the present moment by not following the thoughts. We give ourselves permission to just have a break. That's what we're doing. So you can do this practice, body, breath, mind, in 3 minutes, spending 1 minute on each of the 3 steps. Or you can even do it faster than that, the more familiar you become with it. And I like doing this practice in between activities. I like doing it before I start my day. I like doing it before a meeting, before a presentation, after lunch, before when another section of the day starts. So this is what I call a micro practice. You don't need to be sitting like we did just now in a formal practice. You can do this at your desk just before you make a phone call to a client, for example, or something like that. So you can find your own way of doing it. And it's really just resetting your system, body, breath, mind. Okay. If there are any questions, please keep them. I'll get back to them in the questions. So why should we be doing this? What are the benefits of using mindfulness in the workplace? So I just want to give you an idea of the different benefits that we can have. And one of which is, and these have all been studies, there are studies out there that are looking at that and seeing how, what are the benefits in the workplace specifically. So enhanced performance and productivity, because we learn to use our mind in a more efficient way. And this then has obvious consequences for decision making, better decision making, more skillful decision making, also more ethical decision making. This is something I wrote my master's thesis on. Stronger teams and leaders. When people are more mindful, they tend to have better relationships with each other, and also leadership really benefits. Skillful communication, because we're just more aware of how we come across, how we speak. Improved employee engagement, that's a big one. Greater job satisfaction, because one just learns to appreciate more. Enhanced mental well-being, and we'll look at that in more detail today. Greater resilience, the ability to bounce back from adversity, deal with negatives that come up. And last but not least, the reduction in work-related stress, which is very much our topic for today. So let's focus on stress and what is stress. So workplace stress has been defined by the CDC as the harmful physical and emotional responses that occur when the requirements of the job do not match the capabilities, resources, or needs of the worker. So as you can see from this definition, there is a kind of mismatch between the requirements, the expectations on the one hand, and then what the individual is capable, willing, or in a position to deliver. And so when there is such a mismatch, I always say to companies, okay, it's great to bring in mindfulness, but if there is a sort of organizational issue of a mismatch like this, then we need to address that on an organizational level, on a systemic level. We can't expect an individual, by learning better stress management, to fix this situation. So there's a bigger conversation to be had around that, but that doesn't mean that we can't use our mindfulness tools to deal with our stress, to navigate stress in a more skillful way. So that's an important caveat that I always point out here. So let's have a look at what stress looks like, what stress actually does. And I call this the stress cycle. And it's important to remember that stress actually had an evolutionary function all these millions of years ago. It's a survival mechanism. It is there to protect us from, it was there to protect us from predators, from threats. And it's the ability to have that stress reactivity when dealing with an acute stressor and a sort of physical predator in the ancient days, that protected people and made sure that we could pass on our genes to the next generation. So we are the descendants of those ancestors that were very successful in detecting and being alert to threats in the environment and being able to react in the fight or flight way. But nowadays, of course, it gets in the way, as we will see here. So how does the stress cycle begin? Well, first of all, we detect a stressor. And a stressor is no longer that saber-toothed tiger that chased us in the savannah millions of years ago. But now the stressors in the workplace are very much social stressors. And I think we're all aware of them. Tight deadlines, overwork, no time off, et cetera, et cetera. And so when the stressor is detected, what happens is it activates the sympathetic nervous system. And so the sympathetic nervous system is one wing of the autonomic nervous system. And what happens when this gets aroused and activated is that stress hormones are released. So we've got adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol, and these start to flood our brain and our body. And what happens on a physical level is that our pupils dilate, the blood flows into our limbs, into our arms and legs, and the heart rate is raised, the blood pressure is raised, the bronchioles of the lungs increase so that we can take in more oxygen. And basically the body prepares for fight or flight. We need to be seeing better, running better, breathing better so that we can fight that predator or that social predator and protect ourselves. And on a brain level, what happens is that it shuts down or it impairs, but can also lead to shutdown of some of the higher level cognitive functions. So we have our prefrontal cortex, which is what is associated with higher level thinking, abstract thinking, planning, strategizing, all the functions, all the activities that you're doing day to day in your workplace. These are impaired or even shut down as a result of the stress hormones flooding your brain and your body. And at the same time, the amygdala, which is our alarm center in the brain, gets sensitized and aroused, and it becomes, if this goes on for too long, it will become hypersensitive to threat. And we will start to see a lot of stressors. We will start to see a lot of threats in the environment. And then that cycle will continue and continue and lead to burnout, lead to all sorts of physical, mental, emotional problems. And I'm sure all of you have some awareness of them, even if you haven't experienced them yourselves. So this is how stress works. And this is what the sympathetic side of the nervous system does. It's there to do the fight or flight. But we have another side of the nervous system, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. And that's there for the opposite functions, to rest and digest, because the digestive function actually gets impaired when we're in the sympathetic arousal phase, because there's no time to digest food when we're running from a threat, right? So we can use this to our advantage because these two systems work as two wings of the same system of the autonomic nervous system, and the more we can activate the parasympathetic, the more we suppress the sympathetic. So it's like a seesaw action. So in order to deal with stress, one way is to create a relaxation response. So that's really what can help us arouse that parasympathetic and suppress the sympathetic reactions. So, and what is really good for that is to engage in some breathing techniques. So I want to share with you 3 breathing techniques and briefly guide you through them. And these techniques you can, again, apply this very, very simple. You can apply them straight away in your working day, and you can pick and choose which ones you like best and try them all. And by the way, I'm going to share my slides if you want them, so you don't, so you have everything there. So let's look at the first one. The first one is extended exhalations. So that's when we inhale for a shorter count than we exhale. So let's do 4 and 7. So we inhale for 4 counts and then exhale for 7 counts, which means that we have this longer exhalation, allowing us to create a greater relaxation response. So if you'd like to join me, I'll just guide you through one cycle of that. So let's breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can adjust the numbers, and you can do 3 cycles, you can do 10 cycles, however long you have and you want to spare, or you can just do 1 round, right? Like we did just now. So very simple, and it lengthens the exhalation, creates a greater relaxation response. Another one that's also very easy is the 4x4 breathing, sometimes called box breathing. There you inhale for 4, you hold your breath for 4, and you exhale for 4. So let's have a go at that. So inhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4, holding for 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. Again, you can do 1 round, you can do 3 rounds, you can do 10 rounds, whatever you have, and see how that works for you. And these are very simple. You can do them anytime. You can do them at your desk. You can do them on, if you go to the bathroom, if you prefer, or if you have a short lunch break, whatever you can spare, you can easily integrate them. And then the third one I want to share with you is the 5-finger breathing. And this has been shown to be very effective for anxiety, because sometimes when we breathe, we can still have those ruminating thoughts and those stressful thoughts. But when we're doing the 5-finger breathing, this really helps with that, and you'll see how. So the way to do it is if you hold up one of your hands, and like that, facing your face, and then use the index finger of the other hand to trace around your fingers. I'll guide you through it in a second. And so what we're doing is we are breathing in as we're tracing up the pinky. Breathing in. When we get to the top, we start breathing out. And we go up the ring finger, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, and then up the thumb, breathing in, breathing out. And then we can go back, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. Yes, see how that felt. What happens with this one, and why this is particularly helpful for anxiety, is because you are engaging more modalities. It's multisensory. First of all, you're using the soothing touch of your own hands. So you're touching yourself, which has a soothing effect. You are attending to the breath, but you're also attending to the physical sensations. And so that means that more of your brain is actually engaged in this activity. So you're less likely to be going off into rumination and into those anxious and stressful thoughts. And so this is a very good one for anxiety. It's so easy to do. Children, they teach this to children. But yeah, so you can experiment with those and see what which ones work best for you, and integrate them. That's what the invitation is, really, to integrate them into your day. Remember them. You can put post-its up to remember which ones you want to do, and just look at it and, oh yeah, let me do that quickly. And they take seconds, right? You don't need to take a break even. So I hope you find them helpful. And these have been, these are part of mindfulness programs. So MBSR stands for Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Programs. These are typically 8-week programs. And mindfulness has been shown to work, especially for employees' mental health. And I just want to share some of the research that's been done so that you get an idea of what they've found, especially with mental health. I mean, there are lots of other benefits that I can't go into today. But in terms of mental health, they found that there are reduced levels after an 8-week course of emotional exhaustion, which is one of the dimensions leading to one of the dimensions of burnout, less stress, less psychological distress, lower levels of depression and anxiety, and occupational stress, the workplace stress that we defined earlier. And at the same time, they found that there are improvements in mindfulness, so being able to come back to the present moment, personal accomplishment, which again counteracts burnout, of the reduced professional efficacy that is one of the dimensions of burnout. Greater occupational self-compassion, quality of sleep, which I think lots of people suffer from, and relaxation. So these are just some of the benefits of mindfulness-based stress reduction programs on mental health. And now I want to introduce you to another technique that you can use straight away. And this is called the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. And I'll guide you briefly through that. And this is slightly different. It's also relaxing, but it's really about anchoring your awareness in your direct experience. Remember, we talked about direct experience rather than the narrative stories that go around in our head. So we can ground our awareness in our direct experience by bringing our attention back to the senses, the 5 physical senses. So the first step is to become aware of 5 things that you can see. And so I just invite you to find 5 things in your immediate environment and just note them. Note what you see. Could be something that's sitting on your desk. I've got a cup of tea here. My phone's here, my mouse, trees. Just noticing 5 different things you can see. And then becoming aware of 4 things you can touch. And I invite you to actually touch them. So you might, touch your shirt or your top, touch the surface, feel really the texture, the temperature of your desk, maybe a hot mug. Just find 4 things you can touch and touch them, really tuning into them. And then I invite you to become aware, notice 3 things that you can hear. Could be the humming of the computer or the aircon, or it could be traffic outside or voices in the next room, or my voice. Just finding 3 things that you can hear, just tuning into that. And then I invite you to find 2 things that you can smell. Maybe it's your perfume, maybe it's a cup of coffee or food being cooked, or whatever you can detect in your environment. If there's nothing you can find, then that's fine too, but at least, see if there is something. And finally, one thing you can taste. And, maybe you had a drink, like a coffee or tea, and there's still a lingering taste in your mouth, or toothpaste, or whatever it may be. Just see if you can detect that. And so that's a very simple technique. Again, you can use that today on your own. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Don't worry if you get the order mixed up. It's just easier to start with the sense of the visual sense, because we're very visual. So So this is another one, coming back to direct experience if you notice that you're up in your thoughts a lot. And I just want to share that, sometimes mindfulness is equated with relaxation. And I have focused on relaxation in terms of the breathing techniques, because it's definitely part of mindfulness, but it's not all about relaxation, right? It's also about becoming more aware of our experience. And I want to share with you this quote, which you might be familiar with, by Viktor Frankl, who is an Austrian psychoanalyst who survived Auschwitz. And it's not about mindfulness, but it perfectly sums up what mindfulness does for me. And so he says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. So mindfulness is really about creating a space between the stressor and the stress response or the stress reaction. So rather than like becoming so alert to the stress and then having that immediate fight or flight, as we needed to do when we were running away from that saber-toothed tiger, nowadays it's not a very skillful thing to do. So it makes a lot of sense to introduce a space between the stimulus and the response. And mindfulness allows us to do that. So relating to stressors in a more mindful way is when the stressor comes, we notice the stressor, but then we use mindfulness, and it could be a breathing technique to create that space. It could be the grounding technique of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It could be just settling the body, the breath, and the mind, as we did in the beginning, just to create a little bit of space around that experience, right? So it's not so tight. We're not so, stress and reaction. And that allows us then to choose a different response, a more skillful response. And so that's how mindfulness works. And that's the real value of mindfulness, more than just relaxing. It's about being able to tune into the present moment and then think, what is the best thing to do right now, rather than doing it, rather than sending that angry email, or rather than shouting at your coworker or your family. It's, let me just become aware. How does my body feel? How does my mind feel? And then what's the best thing to do right now? And so there's another practice before we come to an end that I want to introduce you to, which is called the stop practice. And that really helps us create that space. So when you're aware that you're really kind of getting triggered, the stressor is there. First thing to do, stop. Just pause. Stop what you're doing. Stop, take your hand off the mouse or the keyboard writing that angry email. Just stop. Second thing to do, take a breath. Just one breath. And now, and you can do this as I'm talking through it, if you have something that's triggering you. The third step is the really powerful one. Now observe what is happening. What is happening in my body right now? Oh, I'm sweating. I have clammy hands. My fists are tight. My heart is beating. Can you notice that? And then can you notice the thoughts in my head? Oh God, how did they do that to me? What a, insensitive person. And just notice, oh, thoughts, negative thoughts, angry thoughts. Just notice what's going on. Notice, I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling disappointed. I'm feeling furious. And just notice that. And then the fourth step is to decide how can I proceed? What's the best thing to do right now? Maybe I need to have a conversation with someone. Maybe I need to take a break. Maybe I need to take the day off, if possible. Whatever it is, proceed with care and skillfully, thinking, and which comes out of that third step. Really, by observing the state that you're in, you can then find a more skillful way to proceed. So this stop practice, it's easy to remember, right? Stop, take a breath, observe, proceed. So that's one, to create that space between stimulus and response. So getting to the conclusion, So the main points I'd like you to take away from what I shared with you today is mindfulness has numerous benefits for the workplace. Today we looked at stress, but there's so many others, also for performance and productivity. Mindfulness brings us back to our direct experience, especially those of the senses. Stressors will not go away, but stress is optional. So how we respond to stress is optional. We can choose our responses through mindfulness. So mindfulness helps us shift from a reactivity, from a knee-jerk reaction to a more considered responsivity. And mindfulness tools can change our state on the spot, and some of you experience that through just a short practice. But if we want to create sustainable change, then and a new habit and really integrate it into our lives, then that requires a longer intervention, a longer program. But I hope you feel equipped to use the tools that I've shared with you today. I'm happy to share the slides. And I also have a free resource if you're interested in that first practice that I shared with you, the body, breath, and mind. I have a short online course that I created with sort of very short bite-sized videos. It's 72 minutes in total. You can sign up and just do that at your own leisure. If you feel like it. And it's really, I'm unpacking that practice with instructions and with, and going into more depth about it. So if you scan that code, I'm sure you know how to do it with your phone, then you can sign, you just need to put your email in and then you can start doing that course. And that brings me to the end, and I'm open to questions. If anyone wants to, I don't know if there's anything in the chat. I haven't seen anything in the chat, but you can also unmute yourselves. If there are not that many questions, we can also do that. So yeah, I know that it was a lot, but please let me know if you have any questions or comments, objections, open to anything. Yeah, any books. Okay, so apart from mine, obviously, which mine is it's for mindfulness in the workplace, but it also has the neuroscience and how it affects performance, stress, attention, decision making, well-being. So it's kind of an overview over the different ways. And I've got, show you. Here are some. There are two good books as well. This is called, Dr. Stephen Mackenzie, Mindfulness at Work, How to Avoid Stress, Achieve More and Enjoy Life. Oops, can you see it? So that's Stephen Mackenzie, Mindfulness at Work. Unfortunately, my one on this. I hope you can use them all, and that's something that you can share. You can say here, I've learned some tools, some techniques, and maybe you'll find it helpful. So that's one way of helping someone else.
Clara, can I ask a question?
Yes, please do. Yes.
It's a question, but it's also, I guess, maybe more insightful for everybody. I mean, we talk about mindfulness being a tool to help you to relax. And some people might think, well, I might have a glass of wine to relax, or I might watch a movie, or others might take recreational drugs, anything to switch off effectively. So why is it that mindfulness is so impactful, and I guess how it has an impact on the neuroplasticity in the brain and the frontal cortex? Like, why does it actually work?
Because, yeah, very good question. Love that question. Yeah, if you're after just relaxation, having a glass of wine is actually an easier way of getting it. But I'm not recommending that for that, because what you learn through mindfulness is you're actually training your brain and you're becoming more resourceful so that you always, I mean, it has no, it doesn't have any negative side effects. It's always at hand. And it really, you equip yourself, you resource yourself through mindfulness to be able to deal with anything that happens. You become less reactive to any stressors in the environment. And stressors, as I said in my conclusion, they'll always be there, right? But whether we get stressed is a matter of how we respond to it. So we learn how to respond. And it does have huge effects on our brain, both in terms of the structure of the brain. It actually grows greater gray matter, especially in the prefrontal cortex, which is what we all need for the workplace, particularly. But it also changes the functioning of the brain. And it makes us be more in a state of flow, more in a state of well-being, positive mood, etc. So all these benefits have been shown and studied in neuroscience. So it's really a matter of learning a new skill, being able to deal with life in a more skillful way, rather than having to rely on alcohol or having to book a massage, where the benefits, well, there might be actually disadvantages to it, but also the benefits are short-lived. It's not sustainable. Whereas if we integrate this into our way of relating to anything that happens in our life, then we have those skills, right? It's like we have resources inside that we can use. So that's why mindfulness is a really vital skill to learn.
Yeah, completely agree.
Thank you.
And the other thing really is, I know you said on one of the slides that the CDC's definition of workplace stress is that harmful responses within the body that occur when the job doesn't necessarily match the resources or the needs of the worker, and so systemic change within a system is important. But if somebody is practicing mindfulness and they are seeing it maybe just as a distraction tool, can you explain why perhaps it isn't, and that it's actually something that can be very beneficial? Because the challenges or the stressors will still be there when the person stops practicing mindfulness.
Yeah, so it's not a distraction tool, because what we're not doing is we're not turning away from the stressors. We're not kind of saying, oh, I'm just getting into my mindful little bubble. What we're doing is we're there with the stressors. We notice, oh my God, this person is triggering me, or there is so much work to do and there is so little time and there's so much. We're noticing it, but we're training ourselves not to react to it in a sort of knee-jerk reaction, in a fight or flight reaction. So it's very beneficial because we are able to be with the experience as it is, and this will stand us in good stead for our lives in general, because there will be sickness, there will be adversity. That's just how life unfolds, right? And the more we can rely on our inner resources to deal with that, the better. But on the systemic side, it's what I always say to companies, don't just get me in for a mindfulness intervention or a mindfulness program so that you don't have to worry about overloading your employees or expecting unrealistic workloads to be accomplished and all the rest of it. So it's not about delegating abnegating responsibility and delegating it to your employees. So, oh yeah, they can practice mindfulness, but I can continue to give people unrealistic deadlines, etc. So it's that conversation, I think, needs to be had. So if there is something that is that has gone awry in the organization and how things are managed, then I think that needs to be addressed. And not just through mindfulness. It needs to, mindful conversations around what is a best practice and how we should operate in the company and all these conversations. Have I answered your question?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, it was more just to kind of explain how it isn't a distraction, how mindfulness isn't
Yeah.
a distraction. Because, as I said, if you've got a lot to do and it's stressing you out, and
Yeah.
then you breathe for 5 minutes, you still got to come back and probably come back to even more work. So it was more, I guess, pegged to the first question, which is how it actually impacts the brain and how it's a tool that really develops our way of critical thinking and our way of managing stress and our ability to reduce the sympathetic nervous system reactions.
Yeah. So it won't make the stressors go away, but it will create a different relationship because you will feel differently about the stressors rather than getting sucked into a reactivity. So that's the main thing I would say there. It's, you're turning towards it, you can bear it better, and you can find a lighter, you hold it in a bigger space, right? Rather than a piece of, a little bit of ink in a glass, which will color the whole glass red, for example, or blue. When you hold it in a bathtub, in a bigger vessel, then that little bit of ink is not going to color the whole thing. So that's what you do with mindfulness. You create a bigger space, that space that Viktor Frankl talked about between stimulus and response. And then you just hold it in a different way because it's going to be a tiny little stressor in a big pool of water. Yeah. I'm aware of time. I'm happy to stay on if people are interested, but I'm very aware that you probably have to go to other meetings and things. So, so let me know. But I want to thank you all for your attention, for your intention, for your attitude, and I hope you found it beneficial. And I'm happy to share the slides. And let me know.
I would suggest to just respond to the other two questions in the chat room.
Yes. Sorry. Okay. What to do if we're stressed and most urgently do something which is important and due to time concerns are getting more stressed? Just keep. So you what you're saying is, bring your attention into your body and bring your attention to your breath. So continue, sometimes when we're really stressed, we're not breathing. I do this. I notice, oh my God, I'm holding my breath and I'm stressed. And that's making me more stressed and more unwell. So what you do, keep breathing throughout the stress. You may not have time to take a break, but you have to continue to breathe. And so always take the opportunity when you're breathing out to let go. Have that sense of you're letting go. You're still doing what you have to do. You don't need to take a break if you can't. Hopefully you can a little bit. A minute should be possible, but just take the opportunity to breathe out. Bring your attention into your body rather than up in your head thinking, oh my God, I'm so stressed. That's what I've done before, and people I know, I'm so stressed, I have so much to do. Stop saying that and just feel your body. Breathe out, bring your attention to your feet. That's also very good because the stress is not in your feet. That's a really good way of doing that. Sometimes a lot of stress comes when you're actually on vacation. Yes, I've noticed that. And that's because it's when we stop that you notice. And that's why mindfulness is good, because it's not about being, oh, I'm happy and I'm not stressed straight away, but it's about noticing. And if you feel like it hasn't helped you with the mindfulness practices we did and you're still the same stressed, it's because you notice how stressed you are. You become more aware of how stressed you are. And you can just hold that. You hold that. This is the way it is right now. I'm not going to transform it in a second. But, you just notice, oh my God, I am so, agitated. My body, my mind, I can't relax. And it'll take a few hours or days even when you're on vacation sometimes, because it's when we stop that we notice. Also notice, sometimes we are overworked, and when we stop and the deadline has passed, then we get sick because our body was so tense, so goal driven. And when we allow ourselves a break, then we notice how much we've abused our body and our mind. And so that's why sometimes we find it difficult on vacation, because it takes a while, and because we become more aware. If we're not engaged in this doing, we drop into being, and then we realize that our state of being is not a very healthy one. And then we can work with that, okay, without beating ourselves up. So If there are no more questions, if there are, I know people are still here, so I'm happy to take another question. But if we need to come to a close, that's also good. Okay. Well, you know where I am. If you have more questions, if you want to get back to me with any feedback, any further questions, I'm very open to that. And I will make sure that you get the slides if you want them. And I hope you found it beneficial and you can apply those tools straight away. So wishing you all a good day. Katja, did you want to say something?
Just to say thank you.